What a breaking moment. What an unexpected turn in the endless whirlwind of royal and media narratives. In a twist that even the most cynical corners of the British press couldn't ignore, The Sun, one of Meghan's most relentless, aggressive critics, was forced to report that Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, had reached out to her estranged father Thomas Markle after he underwent a life-saving surgery that resulted in the amputation of his leg. The tone of their headline, "Family First," said more than they intended. It was an admission, a reluctant bow, an involuntary acknowledgment of the compassion, humanity, and emotional depth that has defined Meghan from the beginning, despite years of media distortions designed to paint her as cold, detached, vengeful, or uncaring. What Britain saw in those words wasn't just news, it was a rare moment of honesty, an involuntary unveiling of the truth that Meghan's critics have spent years trying to smother. Because for The Sun, a paper that once led campaigns to demonize her, to admit that Meghan reached out in the midst of a medical crisis is nothing short of a journalistic surrender. It is the moment the mask slips and the truth forces its way through. And for GB News, which built its brand on inflaming anti-Meghan sentiment, even they could not twist this into cruelty. Even they had to concede, however begrudgingly, that compassion is Meghan's natural instinct. This story did not land softly. It landed like a thunderclap. It reverberated across timelines, across royal watchers, across the British media ecosystem that has survived on portraying Meghan as the villain in a soap opera they themselves created. Suddenly, the woman they insisted was cold-hearted became the woman who reached out in a moment of crisis. The timing was undeniable. The impact was seismic. The truth was uncontrollable. Because here is the thing, compassion is not performative. Compassion is instinctive. Compassion is human. And compassion is something Meghan has always shown, even when the world weaponized her kindness against her. This moment was not a PR strategy. It was not an image reset. It was not a carefully crafted stunt. It was Meghan doing what Meghan always does, leading with her heart, choosing empathy, choosing grace, choosing humanity, even when others do not extend the same courtesy to her. The Sun expected outrage clicks. Instead, they delivered the very evidence that undid their own narrative. There is something remarkable about watching a tabloid that spent years twisting her words suddenly printing the truth. We have watched them call her manipulative, claim she abandoned her family, accuse her of being self-serving. And yet, when faced with a real human medical emergency, a father in crisis, a life altered forever, Meghan did what she has always done. She checked in, she reached out, she responded as a daughter first, not a duchess, not a celebrity, not a headline. This is the Meghan her true supporters already know. This is the Meghan the tabloids could never suppress. This is the Meghan whose compassion outlives scandal. When the story broke, readers across social media reacted with shock. Not because Meghan reached out, but because The Sun actually printed it. For years, they ran stories suggesting she had abandoned him, cut him off, or refused all communication. Yet here they were, forced to admit the opposite, forced by reality, forced by truth, forced by a moment too human to twist. Even their choice of words gave them away. Reaches out, family first, life-saving operation. These phrases are not the vocabulary of hatred. They are not the vocabulary of suspicion. They are the vocabulary of reluctant respect. They reveal something deeper, that even The Sun, even the most aggressively anti-Meghan voices, could not ignore her instinctual humanity. The details of Thomas Markle's surgery were alarming. An emergency hospitalization, a racing timeline, a leg amputation, a life both saved and irrevocably changed. Regardless of strained relationships or long-standing wounds, this is the kind of crisis that strips away celebrity, politics, media narratives, or past conflicts. This is the kind of crisis that reduces everything down to the most basic truth. Someone you once loved is suffering. And Meghan, a woman too often dehumanized, proved once again that she has never lost her capacity to care. What stands out in this moment is the contrast between Meghan's actions and the way she has been portrayed for years. British tabloids have built their entire Meghan narrative on exaggeration, distortion, and fantasy. They painted her as ruthless, cold, calculated, and yet here she is, reaching out in compassion during one of the hardest chapters of her father's life. Meghan has always expressed grief over their estrangement. She has spoken about the pain, the sadness, the sense of betrayal, not with anger, but with heartbreak. That alone gave us a window into who she really is. But this moment, this gesture, this news confirms what her supporters have always known. Meghan does not allow the past to harden her heart. She does not allow conflict to shut the door on compassion. She is not defined by bitterness. She is defined by empathy. And so, reluctantly, publicly, and unmistakably, the Sun had to admit what they've spent years denying. Meghan is compassionate. Meghan is caring. Meghan is human. GB News, always eager to dramatise anything involving the Sussexes, found themselves stuck. They could not blame her for compassion. They could not spin empathy into malicious intent. They could not turn her gesture into selfishness. They too had to acknowledge that Meghan did something deeply human in response to deeply human suffering. This moment reshapes the narrative. It exposes how hollow their past rhetoric has been, because someone without compassion would not reach out. Someone cold would not acknowledge a father she has every reason to resent. Someone calculating would not choose a quiet personal gesture instead of a public show. Meghan did not call attention to her compassion. Her spokesperson simply confirmed reality, and reality itself was enough to shatter years of tabloid character assassination. There is something poetic about this turn of events. The very machine that tried to destroy her reputation has become, in this moment, the messenger of her humanity. The very press that profited off painting her as heartless now prints headlines proving she is anything but. The very voices that insisted she was cold now amplify her compassion. The irony is spectacular. The truth is undeniable. This is the power of authenticity. This is the power of living in truth rather than reacting to noise. This is the power of being Meghan Markle. Her compassion has always been inconvenient for her critics. They want her to be cruel. They want her to be distant. They want her to validate their hatred. But compassion has always been her rebellion. Kindness has always been her counterattack. Empathy has always been her strength. And now, the Sun and GB News of all places have delivered the receipt. This moment will not erase the cruelty Meghan has endured. It does not undo years of targeted harassment, racist undertones, invasive coverage, and relentless criticism. But it reveals something far more important. Meghan has never mirrored the hatred thrown at her. She has maintained her dignity. She has maintained her humanity. She has maintained her compassion. This is why she continues to rise, continues to inspire, continues to be celebrated worldwide. This is why the attempts to break her have failed so spectacularly. This is why the world sees through the noise. Because the truth always finds a way to shine through, just like she does. In a world where tabloids thrive on negativity, Meghan's compassion remains the story they cannot twist, the truth they cannot drown, the humanity they cannot silence. When a medical emergency struck her estranged father, Meghan reacted not as a headline figure, not as a duchess, not as a public persona, but as a daughter who still has a heart capable of care. And that is what makes her extraordinary.
And that wraps our daily diaries updates. Harry and Meghan. Always keep the world talking. And if you enjoy this update, do not forget to like, share, subscribe. And for more royalty served with honesty, just right here on Daily Diaries Friday. Till next time, stay kind, stay curious, and keep shining. See you next time with more royal news and good vibe. Bye bye.